All right, welcome JA. Welcome to the books I read. And someone who's there on this show meeting the listeners for the first time to the podcast. How would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rahul. Great to be here. So my name is J.A. Merkel. I write science fiction, fantasy, and speculative fiction. I've always had an interest in both writing and science. So being able to marry those two things together has been the best thing to ever happen to me. For my undergrad, I majored in biology, and my focus was on animal behavior and evolutionary biology, which were two subjects that both blew my mind, especially considering my religious upbringing and how things work like creation. A member of the LGBT community and naturally being an outsider, I had a lot of questions. And writing has always been my way of making sense of the world while also being my therapy. I'm happiest when I'm writing consistently, and it's my life goal to become the best I can be as a writer while writing stories that help people feel they're not alone. That's what books helped me realize.
Excellent. Thank you, Jay. I just request you, if you had to describe your books in just few words as a new reader, what would you say in few lines, the entire series of your books?
Sure, I would say high stakes at where the magic inside each of us is as unique as our family.
All right. Jay, I would like to also understand your life a little bit before becoming an author and after you became an author. So I have a question here which talks about before you became an author, what did an everyday life look like in terms of your work, in terms of your travel, and in terms of your general routine?
Sure. So I worked remotely for a genetics company before becoming an author, and my routine consisted of trying to squeeze writing time in before or after work or on the weekends. But these days, anytime it was before work because that's when I felt most creative, and there was a lot more normalcy and routine in my life when I had my marketing job. But I knew the job was just a means to an end, but I wanted to be writing every day. So I got laid off about 3 years ago, and since then I'm just writing and publishing books. I've creating to supplement my life.
What is the one moment which you thought, I really want to take writing seriously, and whatever has happened? I know you spoke about the tough part of your life where you were in the middle of a layoff, and these are the things which happen with each of us, and now these are part and parcel as we come into the world of AI, and we see this quite often happening. So that one moment which pushed you for writing.
Yeah, the funny thing is I never anticipated to break off and write books when I did. At first, I had my marketing job. I was writing and publishing my books. I had Bear, Rat, and Chris Six Burberries. They were out. I still had that job, but then, as I said, my company laid me off. They have been doing layoffs slowly over the years and COVID, and I knew that it was the push that I needed. I had a small severance and an unemployment cushion to see what I could do before having a full-time job. And I think what helped me sustain this lifestyle longer is that I've pretty much been a seasonal worker, freelancer my entire life. I started a summer sports camp on my parents' farm, and I just loved that I learned. I love that I for myself. I've never really done well with authority, so one way or another, I have built my life around finding ways to free up my time so I can write.
Let's move on from your life to a little bit about your readers. What I understand from our previous discussions is that your readers is primarily young adult and new adult. I want to spend some time over here with you. When you write, who do you imagine is reading? Is it more of teenagers, more of college students, or maybe young working adults?
I would say all of the above.
Yeah.
But let me get a little more specific. For my Fall Gauntlet series, I imagine maybe more teenagers and college students attaching to the stories because the protagonists are young adults and the issues are more young adult issues. But for my Fourth Portal series, I think it's new adult. But overall, I think all three groups and enjoy my book.
Yeah, of course. With the reviews which I have seen on Goodreads and even on Amazon, I believe everyone is encapsulated by the way you write and the way you keep your surprises hidden. So that's something amazing about your writing. So let's get into the next question, which is about your new adult readers for the college and early career. What themes do you see them responding to most? Is it more of initial few books or towards the middle of your books? Which kind of series is more accepted by your readers? Or is it all of them?
Yeah, I think it's both in different ways. I would say for my new adult readers, I see a lot of people mentioning in reviews how they like that a certain character, will say Fenrir or Freya from the Fourth Portal, they were two, how they're able to make decisions for themselves. And that might sound a little bit off, but the reason I say that is because in this society, dystopian, it's a Confucius dystopian world where everyone thrives for themselves. And so they're not really taught to make decisions for them. I think this is something that readers attach to because we're all maybe constantly forming or reshaping our identities. So they're drawn to freedom, revolution, or maybe stepping away from a partner that's no longer good for you, or breaking away from you. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next is about a little bit about your family, childhood, and values. So what kind of family and home did you grow up in? I mean, to ask you that, would you describe your childhood as very adventurous, at the same time full of bedtime stories, or it's a mix of spirituality? A little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up on a farm with 4 brothers and sisters. It was a big Roman Catholic family. We spent our time doing chores, running around in bare feet, playing on this farm equipment, usually not at the same time. And I like to say that our house was filled with laughter and rosary beads. So there was a lot of love and affection, also a lot of religion and dogma. Overall, I'm very grateful for this because a lot of things didn't make sense to me.
Excellent. When there's a mix of love, affection, books, a little bit of spirituality, it always is the best cocktail for being an author, I believe. So good job in terms of your family, childhood, and the value. You also see all of that into your books, which I mean to say your upbringing is showing into your characters of the books, like the bear and the other ones.
Absolutely, yeah. Everywhere. My family is in all of my characters. My female protagonists, Fenrir and Freya, are essentially based on and made up of different parts of my 4 sisters and mom, who I love very much. And I think family as a construct is a huge theme in my books. A lot of my characters are orphaned or don't have family because of society structure, and I think this comes from a sort of longing to return to the family that created me. And maybe this is something that resonates with my readers because my stories center around familial problems and how we...
Okay. All right. Good. Now we are coming towards the second part of our books, where you have your books handy with you. And people who would be able to see the video podcast of this session, they might be able to see these. People who would not be able to see the video part of this podcast, for the listeners, primarily I will be dropping the links of these books in the description. You guys can go and click on those, and whichever market through Amazon and whichever portals JA will be providing, you'll be able to buy the ebooks or the physical books and read them. So coming into your idea to shelf, which means your 4th portal and the other book, if you can talk about all those things from the time these books were born and the idea from the stage of idea to the time it became finished books. So when did the idea of the 4th portal first come to you, and how long did it stay in your mind before you started writing?
The idea for the 4th portal came to me while I was living in South Korea. I'm just going to go ahead and show the video right now.
Excellent. Wow. It's a multicolored, a lot of oranges, and the 4th portal, I think there is a sun and moon in the background, and then there is a lady which is standing and looking at the blank abyss. Maybe what kind of adventure she's looking into. So that's for the people who are not able to see the book but listen and understand the features of the book cover. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a perfect description, Rahul. So the idea for this came, I was in a relationship at the end of my time in Korea and experiencing a heartache that affected me deeply at the time. But my heart was very untested because it the longest time I wasn't being myself. And the idea came from this idea of love spanning cultures, time, distance, space. What if love was so powerful force that it could actually kill you, stop you dead because you love so much where it physically, literally broke you? And once the idea was developed, love as a virus tried to force you to do anything to protect yourself. I started that within the same month.
Okay. Oh, excellent. A bit of emotion and bit of a real life scenario which had been shaken up at that point of time got into your book. I think that was a perfect example how you put your real life emotions into the book. Moving on to the next part is, how long did you take to complete your first book draft, The Fourth Portal?
It was about 3 months. I had just finished my third and final teaching contract in Korea and decided to backpack for 40 days before returning to the States. So I wrote half of The Fourth Portal. It's 100,000 words. It was called NaNoWriMo at the time, National Novel Writing, which is now debunked. But I wrote half of it then, and then the final half when I got home.
Okay, so 3 to 4 months for so many words takes a lot of patience indeed. Readers say that Fourth Portal is full of surprises and twists that keeps it very interesting. How many of those surprises were planned, and how many are appearing right now in your writing?
A lot of it was planned out.
Yeah.
The core relationship between the 5 main characters going out into the desert had always been planned, but 2 big surprises were that the character Kreia started off very much as a side character, but her voice and essence were just so strong. She just kept pushing her way forward, and she became sort of famous for the 2 words. And the second surprise was that I didn't expect the element of magic.
Next question is about one of the big lessons from The Fourth Portal, the journey that has changed how you approach in your new books after that.
Yeah,
So something which you picked up from The Fourth Portal while writing, and that had become the base for eventually writing the further more books.
Sure. So I think one of the big lessons was that I will try to plan, because I have 2 different series. And for The Fourth Portal, one of the mistakes I made was I released one of the Fall Gauntlet books just before The Fourth Portal, so I was marketing around the same time and kind of leading in and out of each other, and I think that got a little bit for my audience, and it also didn't give me like the best of learning. So next time I will kind of keep it very separate.
Now, if you pick up the books which have the guardians one by one, and maybe explain a little bit about each of the book, what does that guardian animal is like, and what is the story line in terms of 1 or 2 lines. So one by one you can just pick up the series book and start talking about it till the time you finish it, and then I will have a next set of questions for you. Go ahead, Jay.
So here's book 1 in the Fall Gauntlet series. It's called The Bear. This is a novella collection, so where one story ends, the next one picks up. And Bear is the start of the Fall Gauntlet tournament. So Benji, the main character, enters the Fight to the Death tournament to try to save his mother from her off-world prison. Little does he know, when he gets to the finals, he's facing the brother. The brother wears the bear mask, so that kicks off the whole series.
So that book, before you keep it down, I would like to explain people how does that book look like. So it's a dark book which is kind of illuminated from the background in green color. There is a bear mask which you can see. Some people will look at it thinking that it's a horror book, but no, it is not. It is something of a sci-fi book where it pushes your imagination and think about this book connecting into other books. So which will be the next book? J.A., next book please.
Alright, so book 2 is Rat, and Benji thinks that when he wins the Fall Gauntlet, it will be over, he'll get his wish granted. Little bit of a spoiler, not really, but surprise, the Fall Gauntlet continues. Our new villains, new setting. So book 2 is Rat, and this kind of gets into the high-tech animal masks that the fighters put on their face, and the tech that allows them to have these supernatural powers.
All right, and that one was the similar kind of design with the purple background, the mask of Rat, and a hand holding that mask. Next book.
Perfect. And then we have book 3, which is Chrysix, which is a made-up mythical creature. It's kind of like a really mean-looking lizard. Chrysix gets into the gods and goddesses of this world. They allegedly have created the masks and passed them down for the humans, and we get into.
So this one is again a book which has a reddish dark background, and you see a lot of lightning behind this because I think associated with the negative aspect of the creature which it is representing, which is kind of covering the whole page. Sure, thank you, Jay.
Yes, perfect. And then we have number 4, which is Car. And this one really gets into the government of this world. So you have something called Crown. They are a faceless entity. No one really knows who they are, but they are the oppressors. They run the Fall Gauntlet. And in Condor, we get to learn what they were. That was behind the Crown.
Brightly yellow colored book with a creature which kind of looks like a bird or a semid. I could quote it with kind of a big beak. It is, and of course, again a type of a mask.
Perfect. And then number 5 is Manta, and in this one we get into the originals, capital, which are technically the first animals. They're gigantic animals that rule the earth and help the gods and goddesses create the ocean and basically take care of humans. And yeah, in Manta we get into the lore of what happened to the original.
The only amphibian, the only fish series colored in blue matches with the rain and water and a kind of a storm which is behind the very similar picture of a manta ray. So thank you for this, J.A.
Yes, and 6th and final book so far is Shark, our second fish, and Shark gets into the Fall Gauntlet. Every 4 years they have the Fall Gauntlet tournament, and they have to have a champion. So we find out, I'm trying not to spoil anything, kind of what happened to some other families in this world when the last Fall Gauntlet champion won, because that dictates the next government cycle and harvest.
That one was something related to a big fish, could be a shark. Sharks all roaming around and turning around, and again a big mask colored in blue. That's JA for you. Thank you, JA, for taking us through the books. And as we come towards the third set of questions, which is a little bit about your journey as an author and how did you circumvent your way from traditional authoring to self-authoring. So we will run those few questions. Your first question which comes to is, what were the differences, big practical differences between self-authoring and a traditional authoring? What are the advantages and maybe a couple of disadvantages?
Sure. So yeah, I'm an independent author. I think the biggest differences to me are about control. In indie publishing, you pretty much control everything. I published 4 novellas in 1 year and was able to make my own schedule, price how I want, and decide every single element that goes into the book, every element in the cover, every word inside the book. To my knowledge, that is not the same case with traditional publishing. So just different options for different people. For me, indie publishing made a lot of sense. As a freelancer, most of my life, I really work for myself and build this universe of books. But the other side of that is, yeah, you're going to have to do everything. It takes up a lot of time, whereas in traditional publishing, I've heard that you also have to market your book yourself.
Yeah.
So a little bit of similarity there, but things like formatting and editing, traditional publishing.
I hear you. Yeah. I also learned last time when we were speaking about our session is that you had few ups and downs while getting into the cover, the vendors. How did you have working with those editors, cover artists? So if you can tell a little bit about that.
Sure. So for me and a lot of the indie authors I talk to, the biggest challenge for us is about visibility and credibility. There's definitely a stigma that I think is changing for the better, but it's that indie books are lesser than trad books because it's a backup plan. But that's just not true in a lot of cases. I know some are doing very well, they're living off their book just as well as other. But having said that, it's really hard to get people to see our books and read them because of that same out.
So Jay, I know that you have covered a few conferences. If you can talk about that, and if any my listeners can see you in the coming conference, if you have some plans, talk about that as well.
Sure. Yes. So yeah, I did one in Arizona, one in California, which were both amazing. I think conferences are where deep connections and friendships form. And yeah, I also have an upcoming conference in Orlando, July 23rd and 26th, 2026. And it's going to be a huge enchanted realm. There's 6 different things really super excited. So yeah, if you're in the area, come check it out.
Excellent. I wish that I was also in that area and I could have also come and seen. If you could go back and give yourself, a younger JA, one line of advice before starting this journey, what would that advice be?
Oh gosh, I would tell myself to just be okay with making mistakes and continue to write and put things out. I think for the longest time I was really afraid, and I don't regret anything. I think I've been led exactly where I need to, but that perfectionism really back for a long time. So I would tell myself.
All right, JA. So right now we are in the last leg of our podcast where we will have a few rapid fire questions. So get ready and just take it on from. So you can spend 5 to 10 seconds if you think you want to explain it, but one word answer is also good for me. So the first one is paperback or ebook?
Oh, definitely paperback. I like to hold something physical.
Yeah, great. Second question, you want to write in silence or with music?
Definitely music. I love classical or upbeat instrumental music when I...
Excellent. Good choice. Next question. You are a morning writing person or a late night writing person?
Now I'm a morning writer. 10 years ago, I was late night into 6 a.m.
Oh my god. So that's the night turning into a day. Yeah. So tell me about one book by any author you wish that you had written. It could be your inspiration, or it could be saying which you look forward and always fall back when you want to read something.
Such an interesting question. I would say Hyperion by Dan Simmons is my favorite book of all time. Yeah.
All right. How long is that book? Is it more than 500 pages? It's less than 500?
It's probably less, but it's a series of 4 books, and they're all probably 4, 5, 600 pages.
Oh, okay. Fictional character you would love to have coffee with out of your characters which you showed.
Out of my characters, okay.
Yes.
I would say I'm gonna go Freya because I just get inside her mind and understand her.
Wow, that's very nice. Next question: a place in the world that feels like it could be inside one of your books.
I'm gonna Greece. Some of the Greek islands I traveled to last summer have definitely inspired some ideas for my future fall gauntlets.
Oh, great. Next question. Tea, coffee, or something else while eat?
I want to say coffee, but it's a slippery slope. I get really jittery, so I'm going to go with water or sparkling water.
Yeah. For me, I think sparkling water works super well when I'm alone in hotel rooms when I travel and I have to back do a lot of work related to my office and those scenarios. Bang on.
It feels like a nice healthy treat.
True. It's a treat as well as 0 calories, so you're happy at the same time and you're not worried about what you're eating.
Yep.
Next question. Sure. Next question. One word your readers often use to describe your books that makes you happy.
It was a word that you actually used as well, and I'm going to say unpredictable.
Right. I think unpredictability is the heartbeat of our life, and we do not know the next heartbeat is there. So being unpredictable in writing really brings up the charm overall. So that's a good. Jay, so as we move towards the closing, what are you most excited about for your next series or next books and the expansion in the universe, and any upcoming projects you want to share with the listeners?
Sure. So I'm excited about upcoming projects. I will say book 7 in the Fall Gauntlet is going to come out this summer. It's called Lynx. I have revealed the animal. I'm also excited about books 8 and 9 because that will complete part 1. There's 9 books in each, and that will let me focus on my other series. And then one big thing I'm excited about is a Kickstarter project that I'm going to do later this remaking the Fall Gauntlet Omnibus, which books 1, 2, and 3. It combined.
That's a good way to do it, because you can put your hand into all the books at the single point of time, and you can go forward and backward, then going back to the shelf and pulling it out. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Omnibuses are great.
Yeah. The last question which I have for you is, where can listeners find your books and follow your work online?
Yeah, listeners can find me at my website, which is jamerkel.com. I also have a storefront, which is store.jamerkel.com. And then you can pretty much find me on all of the book sites, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. My books are pretty much everywhere you can buy books. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as JA_Merkel_author. You forget any of this, you can just type in J.A. Merkel on Google and something will probably come.
Of course, it comes up very nicely, and a great headshot comes in first, and then definitely a lot of pictures about your book. J.A., thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to have you at Ask Rahul, the books I read, and thank you for all the valuable insight, showing us the softer part of the indie author, because many of the people are always thinking about this journey, and thank you for showing that interest, courage, where you are connecting from US, and the listeners all over the globe will be listening to this podcast and looking at people who would be able to see this. There is Amazon available here in India as well, and I was able to put my hands on the books. So I invite all the listeners to go ahead, understand these books, great information, great fantasy, and how you put your mind away from the gadgets days and the so-called technology and move into a real thinking brain, which is an asset one human being could have.
Couldn't agree more, and thank you so much for having me, Rahul, anytime.
Thank you, Jay, and wish you all the best for your upcoming days. And whenever these books come up, I will be happy to have you back again here on the show. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.